I do expect a pursuit, probably a visit. Like I say, he's a May guy, so you probably won't see a lot of activity until like May. But I do think you'll see a visit. I do think there's mutual interest. I think there's certainly a realistic and legit shot that they can get this kid. They also have Nakai Hill Green, who we've covered, the Charlotte linebacker. I think that's the situation that could work out for FSU in probably May or June. There's some academic stuff to figure out, but I think they feel good about their position. But I think Cam Riley, big linebacker. I know if Tom pulls up the profile, it'll maybe freak some people out because his size doesn't equal what a linebacker is supposed to be as far as size wise. I think it's 6'5", 240 or something like that. Seems more like a defensive end. But yes, he's definitely a guy that I've heard a good amount of buzz with. That's probably the guy I think their target locked on to start with in the month of May when we hit that May 1st through May 15th window. I think that's going to be one of the top guys they push for, and I think there's I've heard a pretty realistic shot as far as FSU landing him, and he kind of fits what they're looking for, kind of pretty productive type of linebacker.
Mm.
He knows the system. He knows what type of stuff that FSU would like to do, and certainly fits all the characteristics that we've heard of what they're looking for.
Well, I'll tell you what, two characteristics that fit what I'm looking for, Michael, are 6'5" and 242 pounds. Those are characteristics that I'm all about right there.
Yeah.
So you could see that we had his on the free profile up. He was 215, 210 coming out of high school.
Yeah.
Putting on 30 pounds. I mean, my goodness, 30 pounds. He looks like a little kid there compared to the Auburn photo. But 245. All right, we'll see if Florida State lands him. That lends itself to Nole Fan 91's question. I think the answer is just a resounding yes. Do we look for another linebacker in spring?
Yeah.
This is a priority for Florida
Yeah.
State.
Yeah, they definitely want that. Probably two, to be honest with you, because they don't have one outside of they got Sean Murphy, but they still want to really solidify that depth, and we've seen that across the board with FSU. They're not afraid to go over the position of what they need, and I think you could see two guys added. But I think Cam is definitely the top guy that hasn't visited, that they really are locked in, and usually when they lock in, the results are pretty good. Usually, I hear like constant calls. The chances are usually pretty good.
William wants to know, do y'all think we get it? Okay, so I'm going to cross linebacker off the list, William.
Okay.
Do y'all think we get a defensive tackle, linebacker, and experienced wide receiver after spring? We've addressed the middle one. So what do you think about D tackle and wide receiver, Michael?
Yeah, I think Williams on the right track. I mean, I think that's kind of things they'll look for because there's going to be attrition to FSU. Adding and leaving more than likely. After the spring. Like you had it on where you're talking about Julian Armel and all these guys. I mean, there's going to be guys that have decisions to make after that spring. So I think defensive tackle, linebacker, and wide receiver is kind of where I've got circled. I think the difference with this wide receiver, what they got in the with Jalen Browns and the Malik Benson is, I think you're going to want somebody with numbers, productivity. That's going to be a big deal with whoever you get. And I think preference would be a bigger body receiver that can do a lot of different things that you can use inside and outside. I think that's kind of what they're looking for. But I think William is definitely on the right track. That's kind of what I have circled. Now there might be a few more that they do best available. We've seen that FSU is not afraid to overload positions, so there might be positions that they add on to that we don't have on there, like offensive tackle. I know they would like one. Seems like they're still recruiting interior guys. I think Jacob Rizzi is the guy that visited over the weekend from Harvard. He visited over the weekend. It's kind of a sneak-in visit, and I'm looking to get up with him. But yeah, so there's still some best available in there, but I think for the most part, William has it as far as the main places, DT, LB, and another wide receiver.
Well, maybe there could be a best available, Michael. I mean, like, look, I'm not even hinting at tampering or anything. It's just that if Michigan loses its head coach, chances are there's going to be some really good football players that might be looking elsewhere. So it's almost like this never ends. I mean, well, it does never end. Coaches know that, and we know that in the industry. But, I mean, Michigan, or maybe if somebody replaces Harbaugh at Michigan from another Power 5 institution, like, you've got to reassess every time one of these windows open, right?
You do, and I mean, you got to reassess your roster, and you always got to look of what your roster is going to look like after May. After you go through spring. It's very encouraging. All the stuff we've heard with the Battles In, where they mention, this guy's coming back, relationships, and these guys are supposed to pop back. I think it's always a good thing, what you're getting as far as the return and the retention. But overall, you got to keep working on your roster until you know this is what you have. Until after that May 15th, until you have what you're going to have going into the season. So, yeah, it's a almost a full year. It feels like thing. Obviously, the next 2 weeks we'll have back to back again junior days. That'll kind of wrap up my part. After that, I'm gonna kind of slide away a little bit and let the team guys do their things. But yeah, you got to get that roster right, and it's never over until both of those windows are done, and you're always evaluating the roster. I mean, that's what FSU is really excelled at, compared to a lot of schools where they think they can squeeze somebody in. And I think once FSU has an eye on somebody in the portal, and they feel like go time, they go.
Mhm.
They don't hesitate. They don't. Well, we could get somebody else that could be better. It's like if they fit what they're doing, FSU doesn't hesitate.
The last portal question, and then we'll get a couple of recruiting things, and then
Okay.
we'll wrap it for the night. Jalen says, "What's more likely? What's more likely? Now we know what they're shopping for: proven wide receiver or another offensive lineman. What do you think that they would be more likely to do if you had to pick one of the two?"
I'd say offensive tackle because I think if you offered me a really solid left tackle, I think I would take that over another receiver. I
Right.
think you feel good about the few guys that you have coming in and then what you're returning. I think that's more likely. It doesn't mean that they won't get both. Why not both, Jalen? Why not both, man? But I
Yeah.
think it's more likely that you see a left tackle in there because left tackle would really, I think, solidify kind of what they have in the room.